Drew, you got a beard, a full beard now?
I kind of always had it. Before,
I'm just messing with you, man. I'm just messing with you.
The last episode, shout out to our last guest on our previous episode, Kayla. Thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate you very much. I was in the Amazon forest and nobody even knew that.
Bro, you got the same background, my G.
Yeah, this is portable. This is portable, baby. Four walls. I take them down. I take them with me, man. That's it. Ladies, please, all the single ladies out there, please hit up. Hit up. Hey, I know it's been a minute. Everybody during this quarantine getting a little lonely. I mean, he's a great man to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, plug your Instagram. And Wilbur Garcia Juarez.
You know, we got a man, a very loyal man over here. Shout out to Daniel.
What's his Instagram again? What is it? D-Will 516, something like that. What is it? D-Will 516. What up?
Yo.
What up? Good morning, people.
This is the Vaugiotto broadcast show.
Timpin Salone. You heard it, folks. We're back again. Another installment of Timpin Salone. It's your host, Wilbur Garcia Juarez, and with me we got Trubisky and Williams. Say what's up to the people.
What's up, everybody?
Along with him, you know, we also got Q Echelon Carter.
What up?
And you'll also notice somebody else here. But we'll hold off on that just in 1 second. So you know us, all of us, undisclosed locations, of course, minimum 6 feet apart. Staying inside, quarantine as usual. You know, hopefully everybody's doing good. You know, hopefully the families are doing well. The world is currently still in a very difficult area. A lot of stuff is going on. But, you know, we're trying to keep it positive, good vibes and all. So I'm going to toss it to Q Echelon Carter real quick so he can give a proper introduction to our guest.
So today we got an international player in the building. You feel me? If you ever lived in the Queens area, you definitely know this man. You feel me? He's a friend, you know, good dude. So I'm going to introduce everybody to Mr. Daniel Haynes. Say what up to the people, bro.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? How y'all living?
So for those who don't know, give me a little short synopsis. Who is Mr. Daniel, bro?
I'd say somebody that's down to earth, chill to talk to. Always trying to get better at my craft, which is journalism. Like, just try to be a better person every day. You know, ain't no international player. That's you. That's you, Mr. Q Echelon Carter.
Nah, bro. I'm chilling. That's Trubisky over there. Hey.
Yeah, just, you know, right now, currently high school teacher out at the Bronx, Hollows High School, teaching media and journalism. So, you know, alongside doing my own journalism, just trying to educate the next generation.
Yeah, so those who don't know, you recently started your own digital magazine, Turning Words into Windows. Can you tell everybody how, like, you started the idea, like, what motivated you to embark on that journey?
So coming from Guyana, like, everyone knows that I'm the Guyanese kid, but like, coming from Guyana, like, I always wanted to do journalism. I always wanted to tell stories and just be able to give something back to the community, you know? Like I think that everyone has their own talent, and at the time when I started in journalism, I thought that my talent was being able to showcase other people's talent through like the world of writing. So about last year, I was sitting around. It was during the summer. I was just sitting around thinking about it, like what I wanted to do next, like what I wanted to go, where I wanted to go. So I knew the idea was a magazine at one point in or some point or later. So the first thing I decided to do, I started working on a website, like just to showcase like some of my old content as a portfolio at first. But then it started to change into something more. And then I decided I'd trademark the phrase turning words into windows. And like coming back to this year, that's when I knew that turning words into windows, that was going to become a reality. And there was no better time to start to share stories and at a time when stories were needed, when we needed to hear what was going on with other people. Like, and that's why I started, and that's how I started it. So just building off of that phrase and trying to think of that as my purpose. Like that's my purpose, to turn words into windows. So yeah.
Now, I got a question for you. You say you're from Guyana.
Yeah.
So, did you grow up in Guyana?
Yeah. Most of my life. Yeah. I
So
came to the US for school. Like back in 2017, came as a spring transfer.
how was that? How was that adjusting when you first came?
It was rough. It was rough because, you know, well, for the people that don't know, Guyana is in the Caribbean / South America. And like the first thing I had to adjust to was coming to a place where the population was about 8 million just in the city alone. And like for me, my population is 800,000 in my entire country. Like adjusting to how fast the US moves, adjusting to at the same time how about it everyone is, you know, like everyone's on their own stuff, like they're always constantly grinding and just, I guess, just always running. And that's not how it was for me growing up. And I came here with like no money in my pockets. Just came in the heart of winter, didn't even have a winter jacket. So like never seen winter in my life. Like that was crazy. Like not even on, well, taking a while to adjust to the fact that when this, even though the sun is shining, it's still gonna be brick outside.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just the simple stuff, man. Like you don't think about it, but it's just the simple stuff.
Yeah. And so did you always picture yourself coming to another country?
Yeah, I think since I was a child, I remember always being interested in books and always reading. And I had this book that was about like 8 major cities slash like the wonders of the world slash landscapes. Like I don't like, and I was reading through it, and there was a chapter that was on New York, and it had at the time the trade centers at the time, and it had like the scenes of like the New York taxis and like the yellow cabs and people on the street and how busy it looked. And I was like, that looks beautiful. And like you hear the story of someone coming, like the small town kid coming to the big city. For me, it was coming from a completely different world and just seeing and visualizing that that's where I wanted to be, and I would work towards getting to that point.
Yeah. I could definitely speak on that because for me, I've been fortunate enough to grow up in New York. So like I've seen New York City specifically transition. So like from when the towers were up and yellow taxis were seen everywhere, if you go to the city now, unfortunately the towers are not there anymore and taxis aren't really in the city much anymore. You replace them with Ubers, Toyota Camrys, Suburbans. It's
Yep.
all just, it's different, but the people are still moving. It's always fast paced. There's always noise and stuff going on. Um, so do you think, because a lot of people, it's from a lot of different countries, they say that America is the place of dreams. They say that it's probably the greatest country in the world. Uh, do you feel that way? Would you agree with that statement?
I think it's, for me, there's different interpretations to that statement.
Mhm.
Like in one sense, I wouldn't have been able, or at least not on the same scale, to do what I've done in the US so far. Like that back home, like I would have been able to do that. So in terms of opportunities, I think, yeah, it definitely is a place for opportunities because like I said before, like it's always going, right? It's always ticking. There's always an opportunity to grind, an opportunity to get money. There's like always those opportunities. But at the same time, when you mix in what we see in the undercurrent of the US, like racism, like systemic oppression, like people's voices not being heard, like at the same time, like let's talk about the immigration issue for one. Like when you take into account all that stuff, it's like no, it's not the greatest country in the world. If and don't get me wrong, inequalities exist around the world, but like I've never been in an environment where you can literally feel it every time you walk outside, like I have while I'm here. So yeah.
You brought up immigration. That's something that me and you kind of talked about off camera. But talk about the process and how hard it is to be an immigrant or to get citizenship to America.
I'm not a citizen or a permanent resident. Right now I'm an international student. Like that's my visa status.
Okay.
So it's F1. And like it's a hard process for you to even get into school because the thing is, it's like first you gotta apply to colleges. You gotta write the SATs. And coming from Guyana, where unlike most of the Caribbean, we do CSEC/CXC, which is like a nationwide exam at the end of 11th grade. And we don't do community colleges or stuff like that. So to come to the US, you gotta write CXC/write CAPE when you reach to the tertiary level, which is 12th and 13th grade, and that's the equivalent of a year of college. So you essentially have to do those exams, then write the SATs, and then you got to pay for the SATs because it's not offered readily at institutions. So it's not like, like how, over here, you'll come into school on a weekend and you'll sit and you'll take the PSATs and then you'll take the SATs. It's not the same back home. So you first got to do those exams, graduate, write the SATs, then apply to colleges, and then after you get accepted as an international student, you have to be able to show proof of finances that you can support yourself and your parents can support you while you're over here, especially if you're not on a scholarship. And the cost of college, like for me to come to St. John's, it was 60,000. Like, and that price could even be high when you take into account not living on campus and stuff like that, or even living on campus. So you gotta find that money. And when you think of countries where the conversion rate, when you think about the US dollar, like for Guyana, it's 210 Guyanese dollars to $1 US. So that 60,000 is so much, it's millions of dollars just for me to go to school for a year. So there's that factor that you got to think about. Then you got to get into the embassy and go through an interview process where they find out your reasons for going to the US. What do you plan to do while you're there? And you have all these restrictions on what you can and cannot do while you're in the US. But once you get approved, you're then able to come to school, and you're allowed to be in and out of the US because of your visa type, but you're not allowed to work off campus. You're not allowed. Basically, you're only there based on the school. So if at any point you were to get, let's say, suspended or expelled, that's it. You're done. You got to go back home. So like that's how your status is. Like especially when earlier this year the president was talking about stopping H-1B visas and F1s and all of that stuff. Like when you think about that, that stops a lot of people from even being able to come to the US.
And then going back to like the differences in culture, what would you say is the main difference between how it is in Guyana versus now here in the United States?
I think back home, people just care about each other more. It really is a dog-eat-dog environment in the US, especially in certain places like New York. You feel that. That's not to say that they're not amazing people and they're not nice people, but it's just like there's such a more heartwarming culture and a feeling of connectedness back home. Like I remember one time walking down, it was my sophomore year, I was walking down 164 by Union Turnpike, and this guy just fell. Like, and no one stopped. People were just walking past him, and he fell and was on the ground having a seizure. Like no one was stopping. I called the ambulance and everything. But back home, something like that happens from the minute that he falls, someone is over there checking on him. And it's just the simple stuff. Like for me, I'd walk into a class when I first got to the US and I'd say good morning, or if it was afternoon, good afternoon. I'd hold doors open. I'd say something when I hold the door open. I think it's just more, and this could just be my experience here in New York, which again isn't representative of the whole US, but just how connected people were and how much more welcomed you felt when you were in places, and like taking your hat off when you're in school. It's just like a complete, like just cultural norms, and as well as how people operate and react to different jokes. Also, like being Caribbean, you joke around a lot, and then you come across as you're not serious over here, you're flirtatious or stuff like that. So it's just little things that are a disconnect because it's not the same culture.
Mm. And I just had a quick question. So the student visa, so like after you graduate, it's 4 years, and then what happens? You gotta go back, or do you apply for like a work visa?
All right, so this is how it works. So when you get a student visa, your student visa is not typically 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because 4 years of undergraduate study, and then you get 1 year where you can either do something that's called OPT, which is optional practical training,
Mm-hmm.
or that 1 year is you can do your 5 year and do grad school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you choose to do OPT, you then get a year where you can work in the US, but it has to be something that's something that's related to your major. So for me, journalism, my OPT right now, I'm teaching journalism at All Hallows / journalism / media. So like you got to ensure that whatever you're doing is in the lines of what your degree was. And then after that year, you can either do grad school, which gives you 2 more years in the US, and then you get OPT again after that, which gives you another 3 years. You could also apply for your H-1B, which is your work papers essentially. Yeah.
So is that free or no?
If it's free to apply,
yeah,
for OPT, it's $410, and there's no guarantee that you get accepted. If you got so like you pay 410, there's no guarantee that you're gonna be accepted, and you get an extra 60 days in the US while your OPT is being decided upon. So let's say that I had decided that I didn't want to do grad school, I didn't want to do OPT. When I graduated, I would have had it's either 15 or 30 days to leave the US, because my visa, my I-20, which is the document that keeps you at school, that would have been up, and I'd had to gone back to Guyana.
What's up, guys? I didn't even see you there. But now that I have you, let me grab your attention for a couple more seconds, because I got some good news. Matter of fact, I got great news. Timpin Salone has finally decided to drop their merch. Where can you get it? Vaugiotto.com. That's where. That's VAUGIOTTO.com. You can find all their merch, all the episodes, all their social media, linked on that one site. So go check it out.
Hey, you're watching Timpin Salone. This is Daniel. You can follow me on Instagram at DDannyBoy. Follow Turning Words into Windows on Instagram. Check out my digital magazine. And yeah, that's it.
Have you ever thought about applying for citizenship? Because like I know I've heard from a lot of people that if you're born in the US, you're really lucky, because the citizenship, the test itself is like ridiculously hard. And like I promise you, if someone put it in front of me right now, or honestly in front of any of us right now, we would not pass it. And I've seen those questions before. It's pretty unfair. But have you ever thought about it?
It's crossed my mind. I mean, there's definitely, like I said, more opportunities to achieve. I don't want to say achieve more, because that makes it sound, at least in my head, that where I'm from, there are no opportunities whatsoever, and that's incorrect. It's just that when you get out on a larger scale, and you magnify the reach and the impact that the US has on the wider world as well, that's something that you're definitely not going to get back home. So in terms of opportunities wise, like I have thought about it, but I'm honestly not sure where I want to live. Like sometimes I think about Europe, like, just going there, living in Europe for a while, or just going back home for a while. Like it's just, I feel like the future is so undecided, especially now with the pandemic, that you can't really account for all the variables. You just gotta walk the path and like see where God takes you.
Would you say teaching now? Are you teaching like inside the actual classroom, like you have in person teaching?
Yeah. So it's actually a very legit setup because they're hybrid classes, and so one there'll be about 3 students in class. The most I've had in my class is 8, and the rest are online. So I have my laptop in front of me, and I'm teaching through Google Meets, and I'm teaching to like 4 people in the class, and about 22 people online. So trying to keep the attention of both, like pay adequate attention to both the persons who are online as well as those who are in class, and just getting everything to sync so that we're all engaged in discussion. So it's been really tricky, to be honest, just trying to navigate all those systems. But it's been going good because the kids are responsive. I only teach seniors, so I have 5 classes with seniors. So I only teach seniors. I see them all day, and they're really good kids. I mean, and I'm excited about it. Just being able to share about something that I love and I'm passionate about, and I want to see my career in and my future in, to get to share that, and then get other people excited in it, and to get them to see the news world as well as what media could be and its potential. Like that to me is astounding.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say, like, is the journalism industry like now? Because I feel like a lot of times, especially this generation, we have like a lot of short attention spans, so they might not be reading as much. So how would you say like the industry is right now?
I mean, I think the industry has really been changing and adapting really well. Like look at look at the amount of podcasts there are. Look at the amount of vlogs, the amount of Instagram pages that there are just devoted to information. Like you get everything that you want right now just literally within seconds, whether it's through Instagram, it's through YouTube, it's through Snapchat, TikTok. Digital media is the future. And like I've heard it growing up for how many ever years, as well as someone who wanted to be a journalist, that print is dead, that newspapers are dead, magazines are dead. And if anything, I believe that is true to an extent, because there are always going to be those people who prefer to have the physical copies of stuff in their hands. But at the same time, digital is where it's at. Like if you're plugged in constantly, you soak up more information. And I think that's exciting, you know, digital media. And like translating that back to teaching and with the kids, like getting them to think about, like, let's use house highlights or Bleacher Report, and how Bleacher Report uses Game of Zones to make fun, but at the same time tell a story, and in a way you can still gather information from that. So getting them to see these different avenues as something that's not beyond their scope, and as well as, like, just as I said earlier, like digital media is the place to be.
Yeah. And like, have you found it harder, like specifically like nowadays, to tell what news is more reliable than others?
Yeah, definitely. I think never before,
Mm-hmm.
or it probably has been, but just not been documented, as there been so much fake news. Like you don't know what to believe. One minute you hear something, and the next minute it's another thing. It's like you have to understand that the media world could also be something that's a very dark or murky place. 24-hour news cycle and people's attention spans, like was mentioned, like if you're not trending, or if something isn't trending, it doesn't do well. It doesn't generate clicks. Like, so that's, you see a bit more outrageous headlines, like clickbaity stuff. And also just going back, like, let's use the example again of the pandemic. Like at first it was, the pandemic isn't that serious. Like it's just the regular cold. And again, someone might look at me saying that and be like, well, you're believing the fake news that it is serious to begin with. So I guess it's about just having to do the research for yourself, picking your sources of information wisely, and of course, always listening to both sides of the story. Because, like, if you're only listening, let's say Fox News, for example, if you're only listening to Fox and you're not listening to anything else, then the ideologies of Fox and what they stand for are going to become what you always say and how you think. So it's just about balancing your different sources of information and doing your research for yourself.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to say something real quick on that. And I just want your opinion on it, because a lot of news sources, they try to beat one another. It's always competition to like who could get the most accurate information out the quickest. Yeah. And one time that all three of us, I assume you too, we all experienced it was with Kobe's death. Now, we got the TMZ, I believe, was the first one that really blasted it out there that Kobe had been in a helicopter accident and there were multiple people that were in the helicopter with him. And a lot of news sources were coming out and saying that his family was on board. So like people were already starting to assume that it was him, his wife, and his daughters. Like everybody was on board, and that, unfortunately that happened. But then it wasn't until later, after multiple sources were saying the incorrect thing, that the actual report came out. And then we found out the truth and, how that unfolded. So like, what do you think is a good way to not rush the information, like, because just to avoid getting out incorrect information? Like, what do you think? What's a good way to approach that?
It should always be accuracy over speed. Mm-hmm. Like, you rather get it right than be first. Mm-hmm. That's something that I've been taught my entire career, because I've been in journalism for 5 years now, as well as my own traditional training through St. John's. So it's always accuracy over speed. And if you can't verify it, if you're not sure, then you don't want to have to put it out there and then take it back and then issue an apology, Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the best ways to approach it, like accuracy over speed, because being first isn't always being right.
What do you think the drastic effects of the pandemic is going to have after the vaccine is here to your home country?
I just worry about how expensive a vaccine like that is going to be, because if it's going to be expensive for the rest of the world, like if it's going to be expensive in the US, it's definitely going to be expensive back home. And how many people will be able to afford a vaccine that isn't free? I mean, that's the first question. But if it is a free vaccine, I think we'd rebound pretty well. It give a chance for jobs to start reopening, people to be able to get out back doing what they're doing, because Guyana also is like in terms of people going out to work, people love going to work in the sense of earning money. We might not exactly like staying at work the entire day, but in terms of getting money, we'll do what we have to do. We'll work to get ahead. So I think we'll be able to get back to that. We'll see a lot of industries open back up. We'll see tourism open back up because our borders are closed right now, as are most countries. Mm-hmm. So having borders back open, we're one of the top countries in the world for ecotourism, being in the Amazon. So it's like you start to get an economy that it restarts and people are able to get out, earn money, do stuff that they weren't normally able to do during the pandemic. And I think it will really help. It'll be a big boost.
So this is a question for all of you guys. When the vaccine is like ready, available, like ready for mass production, would you guys trust to take it or no?
Hell no.
I give it 3 months. Like I gotta see how it does over 3 months. Like, that's just I just think that's basic. Like you don't get the new iPhone right away. You wait to see.
So this vaccine, I definitely don't trust it. Like getting it right off the bat. So the way I was actually having this conversation with somebody else, so they're rushing the process of trying to get a vaccine out. Of course, it's the same thing with the same concept of getting out correct information, rather than the first one to be with the information out. So of course, whoever gets the vaccine out first, they're going to make a lot more money if it's successful, because they're going to mass produce it to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But you want to get the right vaccine. You want to make sure that it's actually successful and it's effective for the rest of the people. So the first step is actually getting a vaccine that works. So that means finishing trials enough time has passed where you can see that it's actually going to work. And then the next step is getting the vaccine to the people that are most vulnerable to the coronavirus, which in this case, people with respiratory problems, elderly people, or anybody else who's easily susceptible. And then once they get the vaccine out to them, then they're going to go for the rest of the general population. And all of that is going to take a very long time. So like as soon as a vaccine comes out, I'm not going to trust it personally. So I'm definitely going to wait a while. I want to wait at least 6 months. I don't know, even 3 is cutting it close. I want to see like what happens here happens first, to be honest. I'm definitely going to give it time because I don't want to risk that.
Yep, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing.
So basically I'm working on, well, it's stalled right now, but me and a team, we're working on a digital magazine, the second edition. That's called Las Voz, and it's about the immigration issue and stuff that's going down. So I have stories from people who've been in detention camps to art from the Latino community, and I think it's just a celebration of life, but also at the same time, again, true stories from people that are being oppressed. So when that drops, it'll be something that is definitely going to change a lot of minds in a lot of ways that people see things. I mean, I can't deny that having the people who are working on this with me, they're so amazing. Like it wouldn't even get to the stage where it's at now if it wasn't for them. So yeah, when that drops, it's gonna be something to see. I think it's gonna be just as good as the last one, or maybe even better.
So like a little off camera, you did mention your first digital magazine and the process about that. Just can you talk a little bit about that for the people?
All right, so my first magazine, Turning Words into Windows, Project Us. So Us initially started as just as a little project. Like, I wanted to capture people's voices, and I was upset about not being able to go out and actively protest, because the realities of what the implications of protesting for me look like versus someone else who has a bit more liberties and a bit more freedom to do that, especially since I'm an international student. So I was like, why not let me use what I know to do, which is writing and curating and reaching out to people. And I'm very thankful that people even decided that this was something that they wanted to be a part of the conversation on. And that conversation is still ongoing despite the fact that it's not trending anymore. And it's just that process. Through that, I then decided that, you know what, I want to curate this. I'm going to throw it into a magazine. And that's where having trademarked Turning Words into Windows last year all came back, and it came full circle. And I was able to collect everything, do chapters, give write-up, do an introduction, give a conclusion, and just put a fully formed magazine together that had protest videos, that had photos, and to all the people that contributed on the photos and the videos as well. Thank you. Like, this couldn't have been done without the support of people being willing to tell their own stories, and as well as the people that supported monetarily, because as I said on my Instagram post when I shared the magazine, was that we were able to donate a portion of the funds that were earned from the magazine to the funds that I had said on my profile. So I have the receipts and everything, and it's just a great feeling to be able to do something that helps to advance also the literature of our community, which is the experiences, and also in a monetary way be able, even though it wasn't that much in the grand scheme of things, like some people would look at it and be like, well, that really isn't doing anything, but at least it's something, and we each have a part to play. So again, I'm just thankful to the people that supported it by lending their voices, sharing it, and then even going the extra step and purchasing the magazine.
I remember when Daniel, you first were telling everybody about it. I think I was like one of the first people to actually send something in, and like it was like
in the first 5.
Yeah, it was like cool just to even like just sit back and just think, because I feel like a lot of times like everything's moving so fast, like especially with what was happening at that time with the passing of George Floyd, and just having all those raw emotions, being able to just sit down and like really process like what's going on, like what your experiences are. Just being able to write down how you're actually feeling was like something very unique, and being able to like see every week, oh, this is what this person said, this is what another person said. Being able to read those like various experiences was something very intriguing.
Thank you. I'm glad, man. Like I said, Drew, you were one of the first 5 people that I reached out to, because I remember just sitting at home and I was like, you know what? Why not start with the people that are closest to me and I interact with on such a daily basis? I mean, as you guys know, so it's like doing that and then being able to get your own thoughts as people who have a different perspective from me. Because even though I'm Black in America, I haven't had the same experiences to the extent of African Americans living in America, and it's different. The experiences are different. I definitely agree with that, but in the same way, Raga, like for me, when the police see me or when racists see me, they don't hear my accent. They still see me as a Black man. So be able to also just use your own voices and to tell my story in a way through your voices as other Black men, that helped me come to a sort of release as well in terms of being able to contextualize everything that was going on.
And you mentioned your accent, and I had a question about that. So do you still face discrimination when people hear your accent? So like, for example, at least in for the case for a lot of Latinos,
Yeah.
English is their second language. So like, and English is a pretty hard language to like get a grasp of, especially if they just freshly, migrated here. So they're speaking Spanglish. But for you, in your case, you've very well mastered the English language, but you still have the accent. Do you still get discriminated at all for it? Or do you feel like you do?
I mean, English is my first language coming from Guyana because we're the only English speaking country in South America.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, when I first got here, I would say that there was one instance of racism that I experienced that it was a result of my accent where someone directly said to me to speak American. But outside of that, for the most part, it comes with the assumptions that, oh, well, your English, like hearing people say, oh, well, your English is very good. Like, how long have you been speaking English? And I'm like, my entire life. And it's just, there's a lot of ignorance that you encounter. And then, of course, there are people who like to fetishize accents, and they'll be like, oh, well, you have such a nice accent, or your accent is sexy or whatever, like fetishizing it. So it's just like, in terms of discrimination, I can't say the last time I've said something and someone has looked at me, and I guess that's a sign that we're living in progressive times, like at least from an accent standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess there'll always be that person who's gonna hear it and be like, "Oh, what is that?"
Yeah.
Say the plan for the future is to get to the point where I'm able to have that recognized as a major player in the magazine industry. To branch out from just doing feature stories to having sections that are devoted to fashion and culture and music, and just have all of that operating under the one turning words into windows headline. So that's the vision. That's the vision.
And so I had a question. I guess it applies to the magazine and your teaching currently. So I've seen in the news that because we've been isolated, a lot of students aren't accessible to Wi-Fi. So like connectivity, it's hard. So like a lot of students, there was something in the news recently. There were a couple girls in middle school. They had to go to their Starbucks or McDonald's or something like that. I forget, just to get Wi-Fi, because back home they just didn't have the proper connection to go to their classes. And we've seen that as a problem across the nation, actually. And we've seen in cases where Zoom or WebEx, they like crash because so many people are on them at one time. So like, how do you feel? How do you fight that, I guess? Because with the digital magazine, of course, you're going to need internet connection. And in a place, specifically in Guyana, where you experience blackouts, connectivity isn't always there. How would you battle that, I guess?
I think you can never prepare enough. I mean, all right, let me backtrack on that. In the sense of with people having access, like of course there needs to be better infrastructure. Like people have to be able to be in their communities and not have to worry about amenities like Wi-Fi or internet, and worry about, like in the case of back home, worried about their lights going out or when it's going to go out. So first of all, hopefully in the future infrastructure develops. But going back to your initial question, the balance to that would be, in the case of a digital world, it would be to have to go again to that medium of hardcore or hard copy. Sorry, hard. I don't know why I said hardcore, but hard copy rather.
That's
But
a
yeah,
good question he asked. That was a beautiful question he asked. I ain't gonna lie.
it's a really beautiful question. But yeah, it's,
Beautiful
I guess
question.
having to go back to having places where people can be able to pick up that copy or do something with that, because in a digital world, when you're not always plugged in, you don't always have that same access and connectivity. I mean, I hope that infrastructure again develops to a place and to a point, and with the right leadership, that we're able to get all communities access to the same basic things. Like, I think everyone deserves a right to be able to have Wi-Fi. Everyone deserves the right to be able to live in a stable housing environment. Everyone deserves the right to the same level of education where teachers are able to give all their attention or be able to do more in the classroom and not have to worry about the resources of the school, or well, the school is in a traditionally poorer neighborhood, so their facilities aren't going to be as good as schools that aren't in poor neighborhoods. I think we need leadership in positions to affect those changes. And I mean, people got to go out and vote. That's the biggest thing. Like, if you want to see a change, and if we want to get to that point, we gotta actually make that change and vote. I mean, I can't vote, but people have to go and vote. So yeah.
For sure.
Wait, hold on. Wait, why can't you vote?
No, because I'm an international student. I
Oh,
don't.
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, you did bring up politics, and so like the current situation you see the U.S. in right now, politics is a talked about more than ever.
Yeah.
A lot more people are getting socially aware, and I guess it's just, do you see the U.S. progressing from here to November? Because November is when elections are. So we're seeing a lot of news, a lot of different news sources reporting a lot of different information. And the people, they can't absorb that much information because it is a lot. And we're getting a lot of different perspectives. And so I'm just wondering, so do you think that the people are going to be able to get a good understanding of how big of an action, how impactful it is to vote this November? Because I still feel like there are some people that don't really grasp it, because voting is really big, especially now, more than ever.
Again, another beautiful question, but I think that a lot of people do grasp it. I like to counter that because, again, never before, with everyone being home, normally people are so busy in their everyday lives, they've never been forced to stop and face the issues that are going on. And it's impossible to look at what's going on right now and ignore that. It's impossible. And because of that, even though people aren't digesting as much news as they're, because of how much could be lost in translation, they're still seeing the real life applications of that stuff. They're still seeing what's happening in the streets. They're still experiencing the effects of the pandemic and the effects of unemployment, and seeing what that does, and seeing, oh, well, this is what education now looks like. So they're forced to see it. And you can't ignore the things that you're seeing. And I think, yes, there is a breakdown in the way people absorb information from the news, but having that real life experience with the things that are being spoken about on TV, on your phone, on your laptop, on the internet, like being able to see that leaves more lasting an impact than what you read or what you see, because you're definitely like not able to fully experience something or understand something until you go through it and until you can see how it's actually being lived out in front of you. I think people are going to go out and vote and are going to make the right choices. I think America is ready for it. And now more than ever, this generation, our generation, we're gonna be the ones that implement the change. And like we've been hearing every older generation say it to the next generation, but I do genuinely believe that our generation is gonna do what it's supposed to do, and that's influence change and bridge the gap between living how we should live today and how we're accustomed to living in the past.
Say that I feel like even now with the pandemic, it kind of forced everybody just to sit back and kind of see what's really going on around the world. I feel like, especially this year specifically, I think especially younger people are able to tune into the news more, seeing what's really going on. We're hearing like about various things going on in politics world. So I feel like it's definitely played a part. I feel like now more people are going to vote, especially for this upcoming November.
Yeah, I agree.
Mention again where they can find your magazine or download your magazine.
Oh, so it's on my Instagram. There's a post. Right now I'm private, being a school teacher and everything. You know, you can't have a public profile being in the education business, my friend. But now, but there's Turning Words into Windows. That's the Instagram handle of the magazine, and the link is right there in the description. So yeah.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. Shout out to our guest, Daniel. Thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate it very much. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me.
To all our fans, we appreciate you guys. Please like and subscribe this video. Shout out to Kayla, our previous guest on our last episode. You can also go check that one out. We appreciate you being on the show as well. And please keep updated, stay updated with our Instagram and our Twitter. We got some big news coming. Please stay in tune. I know you guys are going to love this. And Daniel, I'm going to hand it over to you real quick. Let them know where they could reach you. And
all right. ID Danny Boy on Instagram and Turning Words into Windows on Instagram as well. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe to Timpin Salone. Like it's literally the best show on Instagram. What else can you get?
Hey, hey, hold on, say that again. Hey, say that again, bro. Hey, say that again, bro.
Nah, it's definitely the best show, man. Y'all gotta check it out. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit these guys up. They're gonna be big. They're already big. Number love.